It's Gene from the mavestar Observatory. Welcome to the new year, guys. We've got some interesting data to have a look at later on with regards to what's going on over in Hong Kong. But before we do, as usual, big thanks to the people that are supporting us. A small amount of people, and we are ticking by slowly. I've got to say, last month wasn't a very good month. The month before was poor again, but it's the time of the year, isn't it, guys? Special thanks to Susan. I won't mention your surname, but I think you know why I'm going to make a special announcement to you, because you donated a special amount of money with specific reference to the numbers you used in that donation. And I've got to say, it was executed perfectly at the right time as well. You probably know why those numbers are a little bit special to me. They probably mean something to yourself as well. So, big thanks for that. And, I've noticed it's not the first time that you've made a specific donation in a specific way. So, big thanks to you. And, of course, guys, if you want to know about these numbers, why they mean something special to me, if you're into numerology, and even if you're not, and you'd like me to go over a little bit of the Bible code, and for those people that probably aren't aware, the Bible does have some specific numbers that probably are codexed in a specific way to try and bring your attention to something else other than just the religious background to it. I believe that certain things were definitely encoded into the Bible, and we're talking about the King James Bible. And if you're interested in me going over that, because there's a lot of people that probably weren't aware of the universal equation and what it all means, and it's always been a very special topic that occasionally I've brought up and never felt I've done it justice. And I would love another opportunity to explain something really interesting and quite bizarre, and by no chance is it any synchronicity involved in that. But if you're interested in me going over that a little bit with you guys, just mention it in the comment section, and we'll have a little talk about some of the codex in the Bible that I've come across, and I've spent a vast amount of time going over and thinking about why specific numbers were used in the Bible, and mainly in Revelations. And it's an important time, isn't it? Because you can't help but reference some of those sentences that were mentioned in Revelations in the King James Bible, because it almost reflects on the time that we're in right now, especially with the people and the way they behave right now. Corruption, greed and wickedness. And if you've ever read the Bible, you don't have to be a theologian of it, and I'm certainly not a theologian, but I do see that there is two ways of reading that book. One is reading the book for its religious overtones, and there is another way of reading it, and I think it explains something about human behaviour, human patterns in behaviour. And again, it also has some codex in there, and I think it's really interesting. The universal equation brings those numbers into context a little bit more, and just really lays it down scientifically in a numerologic manner, that our universe certainly is operating and creating in a very conscious manner. And if that is the case, and it certainly appears to be, because we have this universal equation there, and if that is the case, it's not only conscious and creating, it also should give people some reassurance that there is design to everything within our universe. But in a nutshell, having now studied this numerology and looked at the Bible and some of the coded things in there, you begin to learn that our universe is a massive recycling plant, and it wastes absolutely nothing whatsoever goes to waste in our universe. And I've looked at when pondering many times, what is life about, is the purpose of being here. And for a lot of people, it's like, you go to work, you come home, you eat your tea, you chat with your family, and before you know it, it's time to go to bed, to get up and do the exact same thing. And you might get one day off a week at the end of the week where you do, again, these, predictable things. It's like, you've got to go shopping, you've got to put fuel in the car, you've got to go and see mum and dad, or visit some family members, or you're probably taking yourselves out to treat your family or something like that. But I began to feel like life was becoming repetitive for me, and started to ask questions many years ago now, over 20 years ago. And I came across the universal equation in a very unusual manner. And I don't believe anything is for coincidence. I'm probably here and you're listening to me for maybe the reason that you might have a little interest in the universal equation, some of that codex that's in the Bible, and maybe not. You may be just interested in the data that we're collecting on the specific subjects. But all these things, by no coincidence, are merging together, guys. I gotta say that. And I do think that perhaps when we look at the world and we look at the people in the world, and we see how easy it is to convince them with a lie, as opposed to showing them the truth, and how much they'd rather believe the lie than believe the truth. And I'm talking about things like CO2 here. How easy is it to convince the world that CO2 is man-made, and we're destroying nature on this planet as a result of it. In fact, it couldn't be any further from the truth. It couldn't be any further from the truth, guys. In fact, if we cut CO2, we reduce the rate at which most of the biodiversity on our planet grows. And in turn, if we shut that down, that system down, we also shut it down for ourselves as well. At the moment, we've got 400 parts per million maybe in our atmosphere. On some days, it is a little bit less than 400 parts per million. And I'm not standing on top of a mountain in Hawaii, and I don't think you need to be either to take readings of CO2. I think if you want a good idea for atmospheric CO2, and let's remember CO2 is a trace gas, then I think the more stations that you collect the data on gives you a better average over the whole of the Earth. And what do we see? We see, like the other day in the last video I done, NASA even getting involved in, just saying that there's 440 parts, 450 parts here in the UK, when clearly I put the CO2 monitor outside in the atmosphere, and it was reading just barely over 400 parts per million. A week ago, it was less than 400 parts per million. So, it is easy to convince people that do not have the equipment, do not have the knowledge, that man is creating problems on this earth, and has done since the 1760s, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So, when you start to put all this together and you start to look at why certain things happened in our history that was recorded in the Bible, such as Noah's floods, Sodom and Gomorrah, and you realise that before these events occurred, there were specific behaviours of people that came about, and it was just too much. And as a result, miraculously, something changed and it affected them. And of course, we're standing right now on the precipice of a lot of things, and we'll go into a few of those in this video, like merging back into a glacial period which lasts 80,000 years. Looking at that chart, we can see why we have enjoyed for the last 12,000 years a slightly warmer period, which would have allowed the oceans to release more CO2 into the atmosphere. It would seem common sense to some people, but for others, they would take it at face value that the governments are acting in favour of the public, and we see today, sadly, that that's not the case. They're mainly out for themselves. They have a conscience, but it's been put away and locked in a closet somewhere, and that is so that they can carry on about their business, earning the money that they do. And sadly, this has become a trend that has been set precedent by politicians across the world, as we all know. And as a result, we're living in a world what we are right now, where people would rather believe lies that are told by these politicians, the stories that came out, that support the murdering that they do. It's a horrible time that we live in, and you can't help but think that perhaps something is on the horizon that is going to change all this. And we find ourselves in a time where, there are some strange things happening that were considered constants in our life, or at least 100 years before, such as the magnetic pole reversal. We're also in a strange time with regards to solar activity, a grand solar minimum, solar sunspots dropping off, and have done over the last 3 solar cycles consecutively, exponentially off the chart. And we find ourselves now not even in equilibrium with regards to the magnetic pole shift and the sun going into a grand solar minimum. And then on top of that, we face, the emergence of the next glacial period, and there has been no preparation by our governments to protect our modern way and life in this era for those events that are coming. And we don't yet know, because of the lack of recorded data, what actually happens during a completed magnetic reversal. We don't really know what happens during an excursion, if that's what it is. But whatever will be the case, the magnetosphere from this point on will continue to decay. The sunspots haven't reached equilibrium yet, so we don't see an improvement in that, and we are ever more emerging into this next glacial period. And on top of all this, we've got nuclear bombs, enough to destroy the world 10 times over. We've got an economic collapse merging. We've got corruption rife in all governments around the world, and we have lies being spewed, at an alarming rate. And we are all subject to, whatever they choose at this point in time to be our fate or not. And that is, of course, we take the initiative to see that we see a train approaching us, and that we recognise that we are standing on the track and we need to move in order to avoid a catastrophe. And that is what we face. We live in some real strange times. Anyhow, let's get on with the Hong Kong data. So Tony, our superstar in Hong Kong, has sent us some data this morning. I've processed it. It's up on the website already. I'm going to be chasing JD again for the data to come from California, because it's been a long time now. So JD, if you can, please get the data over to us so we can have a look what's going on in California. We still want to see what happened with regards to that earthquakes that took place a few months ago, and whether it affected our magnetometer there. And Brad, if you can, buddy, send over some data from Kentucky and we'll get that processed and we'll add it up onto the website. I know that Jeff has said now he's going to send his data on the 17th. That's the same day we pop the SD card out, the TriMag and the magnetosphere sensor, to see what's going on with that. And we're a couple of weeks away from that. As well as that, guys, we've got a lot of work ahead for January. We've got to build a couple of muon detectors. We're still waiting for the back order to come to the company, then it can come to us, but we can get on with everything else. So the only thing we've got to do when we get those silicon multipliers is a couple of dabs of solder, put them on there, wrap the scintillator crystal block that goes on the top of that, and we can get them sent out. We can start looking for people to do that, and I really want to get that out this month. I don't want to waste any time, but there's a couple of things I've got to also get. I'm also thinking about putting a CO2 meter out in that package with the Geiger counters and also the magnetometers, so quite a package going out to Brazil and South Australia. So as you can see, Tony's data is showing the same trend as what we was looking at the last month, and you can see that over the course of 5 or so months, 6 months now, we've crept just a little over, or around about 7% of the magnetic field total intensity in Hong Kong. So something's definitely going on. The trend is constant, and we're still seeing the same behaviour. And it dipped as much or as low as 1540 this time, 1540 microteslas. So we're already down now, approaching close to 5 microteslas over 6 months. Something is going on, guys, in Hong Kong region, and we're also seeing some similar behaviour when we look at the data that we've got on our stations out in the Gold Coast with Richard and Jeff in Perth, Australia. So something's definitely going on in that region, whether it's to do with the you know, the South Atlantic anomaly pushing the intensity down in the magnetometer around Hong Kong. We just don't know. But the only way we can find out is by constantly collecting the data, processing it and analysing it. But at the moment, I will say this, we definitely have something going on in that region of the world, and it's really interesting to keep an eye on it. You can see it did fluctuate. It started off as it left off from around about 16 microtesla, and then went up a little bit to around 16.5 on average, and then dipped back down to 16, 1550. So, you know, it's showing a trend of still declining over there overall. So, you know, it's going to be interesting in the next few months to see what happens and whether, you know, there's an increase in speed or, you know, behaviour with regards to what's going on over that side of the world. It is really interesting now to see what's going to be taking place over California, and we've not had no data for a while now from California. And I have you know, messaged JD a couple of times, so we'll give him till the end of this month. If we have no data, I'll message him if it's okay for someone else to pick up that magnetometer from his property, and we'll set up you know, someone else with that magnetometer, and we'll also see if Bang's got some or Brad has got some data for us over in Kentucky. So, you know, a lot going on, guys, and on top of that, we really need to break the back on our cloud chamber. So, you know, that's another thing I want to get done sooner, you know, and if we can by the end of this month. So there's a lot of work going on, there's money to be spent, and of course it's one of our weakest points of the where, you know, the funds drop dramatically. So, you know, guys, if you can give us a bit of a hand, get through this next month, perhaps you know, people's pockets will free up in February, and we won't have to worry so much about funding. But, you know, at the end of the day, we are a crowd-funded observatory. We don't rely on corporate funding, and we certainly haven't got any of that. And if we did, we would have problems, because I'm sure that there are some corporate entities that would probably like to get involved now in our expanding observatory and wouldn't mind chucking in some dosh for that. But I don't want to be faced with, you know, the fact that you can't present data in a certain way. You know, before you release data onto your website, you've got to check us, because after the end of the day, you know, we're the ones providing the checks for you. I mean, it would be nice if we could get some corporate funding, because I really would love to add another person to the observatory and just, you know, relieve us of, you know, breaking out some of this electronics and getting them finished, and you know, it'd give us more time to do other things. And I really this year want to keep on with the expansion of our observatory and collect more data. I mean, we've got a fantastic array of data covering a lot of things on the website. We cover sunspots, solar activity, a lot of data with regards to that. Even though it's in a grand solar minimum, you know, we've got all the instruments from NASA, Goddard, you know, we've got all the data on the X-rays, protons, the KP index. We can see where the auroras are, we can see the flares coming towards Earth. You know, there's just a ton of data. We can also see clearly on this chart, on the space environment overview, that when sunspots drop off, cosmic rays increase. We've also got data on cosmic rays on our website. Sea ice extent. It's just, guys, get yourself over there and click on the more link, and you'll see that we've also got a good learning centre where you can learn all about these anomalies that we talk about on this website, on this YouTube channel, and you can see perhaps why, you know, we get a bit of support off people, because, you know, we don't just talk about this subject. We've got equipment monitoring every 3 seconds the magnetic pole migration over the northern hemisphere. Every 15 minutes here in the UK, we monitor the strength of the magnetic field, and, you know, we've got magnetometers in America, Australia, Hong Kong, soon to be Brazil, and, you know, again back over in Australia we'll have muon detectors going out. And so, you know, we do more than talk, guys. So it's only, you know, fair that a few people come up and help us keep going and producing what we do. And we do provide with the website a one-stop shop for a lot of anomalies that might be interesting to you. Could be Schumann frequency, could be the ice extent and amounts, or it could just be satellite weather charts that you're interested in, and we've got even sea surface temperature anomalies, precipitation, you name it, it's all on here, guys. So I won't take up any more of your time. I am going to be back in a couple of days because I'm going to show you the progress on the build of the next 2 muon detectors, and I'm going to get on the backs of this company that provide the silicon photo multipliers for us, the SIPMs, that are at the heart of the muon detectors. And if you're wondering why, and you're new to the channel, why we've built muon detectors, it's because muons are a subparticle of a collision with our upper atmospheric gases and cosmic rays, and as a result of that they produce muons. And we've got these fantastic muon detectors that detect muon particles, and if we're collecting more muons here at the surface, we know that there's more interaction in our upper atmosphere with cosmic rays and those elementary gases that are in there, like nitrogen, oxygen, xenon, krypton, neon, you name it, all those gases that make up our atmosphere, and even the trace gas is CO2. So guys, I'm going to leave you here. Just remind you that there is a link down there, and that supporting us in this awkward time is critical. And if you want to be one of our supporters and not just an armchair observer, then make a little bit of an effort, get your card out, and just donate a couple of bucks. Every little bit helps, but don't think that there's thousands of people here funding us, because there's not. There's nowhere near that. It would be great if it was, and if it was the case, I certainly wouldn't have to mention it in every video. So guys, I would appreciate some help. The links are down there, and as always, big thanks to our patrons, the people that support us on PayPal. And again, thank you very much, Susan, for your unique support this week. And if you want to hear more about the universal conscious, the Bible, code, and other things like that, then just drop a message in the comment section down below, and I'll squeeze in at least 30 minutes this week, and we'll just go over some of that with you. You'd probably be interested if you've never seen it before anyhow. So anyhow, guys, have a great day, and more importantly, enjoy the beginning of your new year. I'll catch you with you soon. I'll say what I usually do. Bye for now.